You know someone like this. Everything bad happens to them. Always. Every conflict, someone else's fault. Every failure, caused by someone else. Every relationship, a story where they are the wronged one. And somehow, it is exhausting to be around them. But also, you feel guilty for feeling exhausted. Because what kind of person gets tired of someone who is suffering? This video is not about judging that person. It is about understanding what is actually happening inside their brain and understanding what it is doing to yours. First, what is perpetual victimhood? There is an important distinction to make immediately. Real victimization exists. Trauma is real. Genuine suffering is real. This video is not about dismissing real pain. Perpetual victimhood is a persistent psychological pattern, not a response to one event. It is when victimhood becomes an identity, not just an experience. Psychologists call this tendency for interpersonal victimhood, or TIV. Researchers Rahav, Gabay, and colleagues defined it in 2020. They identified 4 core features of TIV. Feature 1, a constant need for recognition of one's victimhood, not just to be helped, to be seen as the wronged one. Specifically, Feature 2, moral elitism, a belief that they suffer more and therefore feel more deeply than others, that their pain is more legitimate than yours. Feature 3, lack of empathy for others' pain, while simultaneously demanding enormous empathy from everyone around them. Feature 4, rumination, replaying wrongs obsessively, not processing pain, preserving it, keeping the wound open so the grievance stays alive. Now the crucial question, why? Why would anyone do this? Because victimhood, when it becomes identity, provides something. It provides several things, and they're all real psychological rewards. Reward 1, moral immunity. If you are the victim, you cannot be the wrongdoer. The identity itself becomes a defense against accountability. You cannot criticize me. I am already suffering. Reward 2, guaranteed attention and care. Victimhood reliably generates sympathy from others. In a world where attention feels scarce, suffering guarantees it. Reward 3, power without responsibility. Victims can make demands. They can set terms. They can exit situations, all without ever being challenged. Because challenging a victim looks cruel. Reward 4, a simple explanation for a complicated life. Life is hard and confusing and painful for everyone. But the victim narrative makes it simple. Others did this to me. No nuance needed. No self-examination required. No complexity to manage. These rewards are real. That is why the pattern persists. Now, where does this pattern come from? Almost always, it starts in childhood. In environments where direct expression of needs was not safe. Where asking directly for love or attention was rejected or punished. So the child discovered something. Suffering got a response. When I am hurt, people come. When I am fine, they leave. This is an adaptation, a survival strategy for a specific environment. The child learned pain is a currency that buys connection, and they kept using that currency long after the original environment was gone. This is the tragedy at the heart of perpetual victimhood. It was once the smartest thing they could do. Now it is the thing keeping them stuck. Now let's look at the neuroscience. What is happening in the brain? People with high TIV show heightened activity in the threat detection system. Their amygdala, the brain's alarm center, fires more easily and more intensely. Neutral situations get read as threatening. Ambiguous words get read as attacks. This is called hostile attribution bias. The brain defaults to, they meant to hurt me, even when no harm was intended, even when it was clearly accidental. This bias then generates genuine grievances, real feelings of being wronged. The feelings are real. The interpretation producing them is distorted. This is crucial to understand. They are not faking the pain. The pain is completely real. The story producing it may not be accurate. Now, the role of self-esteem, or the lack of it. Research consistently links TIV to fragile or low self-esteem. When your sense of self-worth is fragile, any criticism feels catastrophic, not uncomfortable, existentially threatening. So the victim identity becomes a fortress, protecting the fragile self inside. No criticism can penetrate because they are already the wronged one. The victim identity is not weakness. It is a very sophisticated defense system. Now, what about narcissism? Because there is a link. Research shows TIV and narcissism frequently co-occur. Both involve an excessive focus on the self. Both involve low empathy for others. But narcissism says, I am special and superior. TIV says, I suffer more and therefore I matter more. different routes to the same destination, feeling uniquely significant. Psychologists sometimes call this covert narcissism, or vulnerable narcissism, not the loud, arrogant narcissist, the quietly suffering one, who nevertheless centers every situation around themselves. Now, how does this affect the people around them? People close to a perpetual victim often develop something called compassion fatigue. Their empathy supply gets used up, then guilt fills the space left behind. You stop feeling sympathy. Then you feel terrible for not feeling sympathy. This cycle is deliberately, though often unconsciously, maintained by the victim. Your guilt keeps you engaged. Your engagement keeps them supplied. It is not manipulation in the conscious strategic sense, but the functional effect is the same. You are being kept in place. Now, what about accountability? Can you hold them accountable? This is where most people get stuck, and where most relationships suffer. When you try to hold a perpetual victim accountable, they immediately reframe it. Your feedback becomes an attack. Your concern becomes cruelty. Your boundaries become evidence of how much they suffer. Suddenly you are the problem, and they are the victim of you. This is called DARVO. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. First, deny that any harm was done. Then, attack the person raising the concern. Then, reverse positions. Now, they are the victim of your feedback. It is extraordinarily effective and extraordinarily disorienting. You walk away wondering if you were actually the problem all along. This is called gaslighting, and it often accompanies TIV. Now, the hardest question. Can people with TIV change? Yes, but only with one condition. They have to want to. Nobody can do it for them or to them. Therapy, specifically schema therapy and DBT, shows real results. Schema therapy targets the early childhood patterns directly. It helps the person build new ways to get their needs met without the victim role. But they have to be willing to see the pattern first. That is the hardest part, because seeing it means giving up the protection it provides, the moral immunity, the guaranteed attention, the power, the simple narrative. All of it has to be let go for something better but less certain. Now, what about you? If you are close to someone like this, first, your exhaustion is valid. It is not a character flaw. Compassion fatigue is a real psychological response to sustained emotional demand. Second, you cannot fix them. That boundary is important to accept. No amount of empathy or accommodation will resolve a pattern they do not see. In fact, accommodating it often reinforces it. Every time you absorb blame you did not deserve, you teach them it works. Third, you are allowed to set limits, even with someone who is suffering. Suffering does not cancel another person's right to their own well-being. You can hold compassion for their pain and still protect your own mental health. Fourth, when they DARVO, name it internally, not to them, to yourself. Naming what is happening stops the disorientation it causes. You cannot be gaslit if you can see the gas. Fifth, examine your own patterns. Honestly, why are you drawn to this dynamic? What does it give you? Sometimes people who attract perpetual victims find their own worth in being needed. The rescuer and the victim need each other. The pattern is co-created. Understanding your role in the system is as important as understanding theirs. Now, a final thought about judgment versus understanding. It is easy to be angry at a perpetual victim. The pattern is genuinely harmful. It damages relationships. It exhausts the people who love them. But underneath the pattern is almost always a frightened person who learned very early that the world was not safe for their real needs, who built the best defense they could with what they had, who got stuck inside it. Understanding this does not mean tolerating harmful behavior. You can see someone clearly and still protect yourself from them. You can hold compassion and limits at the same time. That is not coldness. That is emotional maturity. And if you recognize yourself in the victim pattern, that recognition matters. The fact that you can see it means you are already capable of something different. Patterns learned in childhood can be unlearned in adulthood. Not easily, not quickly, but genuinely. The next time someone around you seems to always be the victim, remember what you now know. There's a frightened child somewhere behind the pattern. There's a brain doing exactly what it learned to do. And there is you, who now gets to choose how to respond, with understanding, with limits, with compassion for them and for yourself. If this helped you understand someone in your life a little better, that is exactly what GULD is here for.